Hi guys, welcome back to our class, the Introduction to General Linguistics. This day we are going to talk about syntax. Before we go there, take a look at this picture. I have two sentences and determine which one is an English sentence. The first one is 8 very lazy dogs drank brandy. And then the second one is 8 dogs very lazy brandy drank. Which one is an English sentence? Okay, the first sentence is English. But how do we know that the first sentence is English? Of course, our knowledge of syntax helps us to determine which one is correct and which one is incorrect. So, what is syntax? Is it the text of our sin that we need to pay when we come to the front gate of the heaven? Of course, no. So it is not the text of our sin, but it is the study of sentence formation. And syntax is our subconscious grammatical knowledge. And when we are talking about syntax, we might deal with what we call word order, especially in English, because word order is very important. Now, what do we know when we know the grammar of our language? Take a look at this. Here we have employees must wash their hands before returning to work. What can you say about this picture? Yeah, some of the elements there or some of the constructions are not okay. The first one is the use of the apostrophe, and the second one is their hands. We should use the possessive adjectives. So the spelling will be THEIR. Next, what about this? What can you say about this picture? It's a 7, I tell you. But the second person here has a different interpretation. So when we come to our grammar knowledge, then we can know the grammaticality of a particular construction. And then we might also identify what the implied interpretations are, and also we can determine whether a particular construction is ambiguous or not. Next, grammaticality and acceptability. Are they the same or different? Here I have a sentence, Aldo poured the glass with wine. Is this sentence acceptable? Yes. Is it grammatical? Yes or no? What do you think about the verb pour? Pour will be followed by liquid, right? So the construction should be Aldo poured the wine in the glass, for example. And what about this? Been there and done it. The two constructions here are acceptable, but not really grammatically complete, right? So, something that is acceptable doesn't mean that it is grammatical. You got it? Okay, next. When we deal with syntax, we will also deal with what we call lexical category and subcategorization. Let's have a look at this list. What is the lexical category of lover, cat, and also idea? Okay, they are nouns. And then write, call, try. They are verbs, right? Tall, red, beautiful. They are adjectives. Fast, oven. They are adverbs. And then in and on. They are some examples of preposition. Now, when we are talking about nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, etc., then we are talking about the lexical category of the words. Now what about subcategorization? Before we go there, tell me the difference between go, buy, and put. What can you say about go, buy, and put? Does the verb go needs a noun phrase to come after this verb? No, right? Go will be followed by an element that will tell us about the direction where the person goes, right? So go home, go to school. So I think one noun phrase that will follow go is just home, and others will be in the form of prepositional phrase. What about buy? Can it be followed by a noun phrase? Yes. What about put? How many elements do we need to come after the verb put? I put something somewhere. So after the verb put, we need to have something and the place where the thing is put, right? Here, when we're talking about what we need to come after the verbs here, we are talking about subcategorization. So, subcategorization will give us information about the lexical category a verb combines with. For example, when we are talking about snore, this verb doesn't need anything, so empty. Because snore is an intransitive verb. What about eat? Eat needs an NP. And then send. Send needs something that is sent to someone. Or we can also say, I sent my husband a new computer. So here we have verb, NP, and NP. Now here, when we're talking about this, they are the subcategorization of the verb snore, eat, and send. Do you get the point? I hope you can get the point of this. Now, when we are talking about lexical category, I want you to recall your memory about these parts of speech. So if you forget about noun, what a noun is, what a pronoun is, what an adjective is, then please have a look at this list. Talking about syntax will also be related to the agreements. I believe that in your English grammar class, you have learned about the agreements that we have in the English grammar. So you have the agreement related to number, we have singular and plural, and then the agreement related to person, we have first person, second person, and third person. And then when we are talking about tense, you have present and past. And then when we are talking about voice, we have active versus the passive voice, and also related to gender, we have male and female. So they are the agreements that we need to recall every time you're talking about syntax. As we have discussed before, syntax is related to sentence structure. So I would like to highlight some points here. The first one is that sentences have structure. Sentences have a particular structure and are made up of constituents. So there are some elements in the sentence, and then the constituents are in the form of phrases. Now, we can say that a unit is a constituent if there is a node that dominates all elements in that unit and no others. I miss the D between no, so please add D like that. And then we also have what we call recursion. Recursion is the capacity to be applied more than once in generating a structure. The example is like this. I put the book on the table near the window in my office. Here you have on the window, on the table, near the window in my office. We have three prepositional phrases. On the table, near the window, and then in my office. So it is possible for us to have the same phrases in one construction. So to repeat some phrases is very possible, and we call this principle recursion. The next note is related to phrase. What is a phrase? Syntactically, a phrase consists of a head and modifiers, but a phrase can also consist of a single word that functions as the head. For example, apples or delicious. Here, the word apples just consists of a single word, but it is also a phrase. And the head here determines the type of the phrase. For example, when a phrase is headed by a noun, then we call it a noun phrase. When a phrase is headed by a preposition, then we call it a prepositional phrase. Next, there are some kinds of, we have different categories of constituents, and it is related to previous explanation about the name of the phrase. So when we are talking about the structure of sentences, then we can divide the constituents of the phrase, right? And the constituents can be labeled based on the name of the phrase. And don't forget, every constituent in the structure has a particular function. So we will see it when we try to draw or when we try to describe the structure. But before we go there, we will see trees and constituents first. When we talk about the structure, as you as you have learned before, the structure consists of different constituents, right? And the constituents has a particular function, and because of that, then there must be a hierarchy. So when we talk about syntax, then we can describe the hierarchical structure in the form of linear order. Like here, when we have Arif loves Ari, and then Ari loves Arif. Here we have the linear order. We have three words here, but when we arrange it differently, then the meaning can be different. The second one is in the form of tree diagram. So we will use a tree diagram to describe the hierarchical order or the hierarchical structure of a particular construction. When we draw the tree diagram or when we describe the constituents in a linear order, then we have to remember that there is a possibility that constituents might have constituents of their own. So constituent in a bigger constituent. And then because we have this possibility, then we may have what we call immediate constituents. An immediate constituent is the constituent where there are no intervening elements. So for example, like this. Here we have a sentence, happy linguists make a diagram. And this is a sentence, right? And this sentence has a particular construction. It has a particular constituents, and the constituents of the sentence can be happy linguist and then make a diagram. Now, happy linguist and make a diagram are the immediate constituents of the sentence because there isn't any intervening note. But a diagram is not the immediate constituents of the sentence because we have an intervening note here. And node is the meeting point of the two branches here. We call node. So they are the constituents. And here make a diagram is a constituent, right? In this big constituents, we have a diagram as the smaller part of make a diagram. So that's the explanation about how we try to analyze the structure of a sentence. Now, when we are talking about the structure of phrases like this, then we have what we call phrase structure rules. And the phrase structure rules can be described using what we call notation. For example, here, a noun phrase might consist of a determiner, an adjective phrase, a noun as the head, and a prepositional phrase. Here, the bracket indicates that they are optional, and then when you have plus, it indicates that you may have one or more than one element. In this example, we may have one or two or three or four adjective phrases, and then one prepositional phrase or two prepositional phrases or three prepositional phrases like what we have in the previous examples. And then a prepositional phrase might consist of preposition plus noun phrase. Verb phrase might consist of adverbial phrase plus verb plus NP plus PP plus adverbial phrase. So here are some examples of the structure of phrases. And what I want you to do later on is to identify the examples of the phrases with this construction. Next, talking about the structure of sentences, then let us try to analyze the sentence. I scratched the dog with a stick. There are some elements there. This is I, right? This is the person. I love linguistics. He said something like that. And then here I'm a stick, and this is a dog. So there are three things there. How can we analyze it? How can we group the constituent? Do I mean this? I'm holding the stick, and then I scratch the dog. Scratch, 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 like that. When we have this meaning, then how can we group the constituents? If this is the case, then I use the stick as the instrument, right? So the analysis will be like this. The dog is separated from with a stick. Is there any possibility, any other possibility? Yes. We may also have this analysis. So I do not use the stick, but the dog is holding the stick. And the man here patted the dog. Oh, nice doggy. And the analysis is different. When it is like this, it means that the stick is with the dog, right? So the dog with the stick should be in one unity. So knowing syntax will help us a lot when we have this kind of construction. When we have ambiguous construction, then we can explain it using syntactic analysis, especially when the ambiguity is the result of the syntactic construction. Now, this is your task. What I want you to do is to describe the three diagrams for the sentences below. The man drove his car to the garage, the students went to school slowly, and the boy saw the girl with a telescope. Good luck! I'll see you later on. Thank you.